What happens when two of late night's biggest names sit down for what should be a friendly chat, but instead explodes into the most shocking on-air meltdown in television history? It only took 36 seconds of brutal comments for Stephen Colbert to storm off set, leaving Jimmy Kimmel speechless and the audience in complete chaos. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this outrageous behavior. Now, let's get into it. So picture this. Stephen Colbert walks onto the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live to massive applause. The audience is going wild. Everyone's expecting the usual late-night banter, some laughs, maybe a few jokes about politics. But what they got instead was something nobody saw coming. From the very first moment Colbert sat down, you could feel something was off. The energy was weird, tense. Jimmy had this look on his face like he was about to stir up trouble, and boy did he ever. Jimmy starts off with what seems like a normal question. He says, "So Stephen, great to have you here. You know, I've been watching your show lately, and I gotta ask, do you ever get tired of, preaching to the same crowd every single night?" The audience goes quiet. You can hear a pin drop. Stephen kind of laughs it off, trying to keep things light. He says, "Well, Jimmy, I think what we do is try to speak truth and connect with people who care about what's happening in the world." But Jimmy doesn't let it go. He leans back in his chair with this smug smile and says, Right, but I mean, come on, it's the same jokes, the same targets, the same audience, clapping like trained seals. Don't you think it gets a little, predictable? A little boring?" You can see Stephen's face change. The smile fades just a little bit. He's trying to stay professional, but you can tell he's not happy. He responds, "I think our audience appreciates smart comedy that doesn't talk down to them. We trust they can handle complex ideas." Jimmy cuts him off, waving his hand dismissively. He goes, "Complex ideas? Stephen, you're doing the same Trump impression you've been doing for 8 years. How is that complex? My kid could do that." The audience gasps. Some people laugh nervously, but most are just stunned. This isn't playful ribbing anymore. This is getting personal. Stephen shifts in his seat, and you can see him trying to decide how to respond. He takes a breath and says, "You know what, Jimmy? I think there's a difference between consistency and holding powerful people accountable and just going for cheap laughs." And that's when Jimmy really goes for it. He leans forward, looks Stephen dead in the eyes, and says, "Cheap laughs? That's rich coming from you. At least I don't spend every monologue acting like I'm the moral authority of America. You're a comedian, Stephen, not a politician. Stop acting like you're saving the world one punchline at a time." The tension in the room is unbelievable now. Stephen's jaw tightens. His hands grip the armrests of his chair. He says, "I've never claimed to be saving the world. I'm trying to do comedy that means something, that has a point of view. If that bothers you, maybe that says more about you than it does about me." Jimmy laughs. But it's not a friendly laugh. It's condescending, almost cruel. He says, "Oh, here we go, the high and mighty Stephen Colbert. You know what your problem is? You can't just be funny anymore. Everything has to be a lecture. Everything has to be about making yourself look like the hero. It's exhausting, man. Even your own fans are getting tired of it." Stephen's face goes red. He points a finger at Jimmy and says, "You don't know what you're talking about. You sit here in your studio making fun of people for easy laughs, punching down at whoever's trending that week, and you have the nerve to lecture me about integrity?" Jimmy's smile disappears. Now he's getting defensive too. He shoots back. "Punching down? I punch in every direction, pal. I don't pretend to be better than everyone else like you do. At least I'm honest about what I am. You're up there on your high horse every night acting like you're Walter Cronkite when really you're just another guy trying to get ratings." The audience is completely silent now. Some people look uncomfortable. Others are leaning forward, not wanting to miss a single word. This has gone way beyond awkward. This is a full-blown fight happening live on television. Stephen stands up halfway out of his chair, and you can tell he's about to lose it. He says, "You know what, Jimmy? I came here thinking we could have a real conversation, but clearly you just wanted to take shots at me to make yourself feel relevant. Is that what this is? You're jealous?" Jimmy stands up too, and now both of them are on their feet. Jimmy says, "Jealous? Of what? Your holier-than-thou act? Your ratings that are barely better than mine?" Give me a break, Stephen. You're not special. You're just another late-night host who got lucky. Stephen shakes his head, his voice rising. Got lucky? I worked my tail off for years. I built something real, something people connect with. You're just bitter because your show doesn't stand for anything. It's empty calories, Jimmy. Junk food television. Jimmy's face turns bright red now. He's angry, really angry. He snaps. My show doesn't stand for anything? At least I don't use my platform to talk down to half the country? You sit there every night alienating millions of people because you can't help but push your agenda. You've turned comedy into a sermon, and frankly, it's pathetic. That's the moment. That one word, pathetic. You can see it in Stephen's eyes. That's the breaking point. He stands up fully, rips off his microphone, and throws it down on the chair. The sound echoes through the studio. He says, his voice shaking with anger, I'm done. I'm not sitting here and letting you disrespect me and everything I've worked for. You want to talk about pathetic? Look in the mirror, Jimmy. Jimmy tries to laugh it off, but you can tell he's rattled. He says, Oh, come on, Stephen. Don't be so sensitive. We're just having a conversation. Stephen turns to face him, his voice loud and clear so everyone in the studio can hear. He says, No, this isn't a conversation. This is you trying to tear me down because you're insecure about your own work. I don't need this. I don't need you. Good luck with your show, Jimmy. I hope it makes you feel as important as you think you are. And with that, Stephen walks off the set. Just walks right off. The cameras are still rolling. The audience is frozen, not sure if they should clap or stay quiet. Jimmy stands there, his mouth open, clearly not expecting this. He tries to recover, saying, Well, I guess Stephen had somewhere to be. We'll be right back after this break. But nobody's buying it. The damage is done. You can see it on Jimmy's face. He looks embarrassed, maybe even a little ashamed, though he's trying to hide it. The crew is scrambling, not sure what to do. This was supposed to be a fun interview between two colleagues, two friends even, but it turned into a disaster, an absolute train wreck. Now let's talk about what really happened here, because this wasn't just a random argument. This was building up to something. Jimmy Kimmel has always had this edge to him, this need to be the alpha in the room. And when you bring someone like Stephen Colbert onto your show, someone who's just as successful, just as respected, maybe even more so in some circles, that ego can't handle it. Jimmy couldn't just let the interview be a normal, friendly conversation. He had to assert dominance. He had to make it clear that this was his house, his show, his rules. But he picked the wrong guy to mess with. Stephen Colbert is not someone who backs down. He spent his entire career speaking his mind, standing up for what he believes in, and he's not about to let some insecure host belittle him on national television. And that's exactly what Jimmy tried to do. He tried to belittle Stephen, to make him seem preachy and self-important, when really, Stephen's just someone who cares about using his platform for good. Let's break down some of those comments Jimmy made. First, he called Stephen's work predictable and boring. That's not just criticism, that's an insult. You don't invite a guest onto your show just to tear apart their life's work. That's not hosting, that's bullying. Then he said Stephen acts like he's the moral authority of America. Again, that's a cheap shot. Stephen has never claimed to be perfect or to have all the answers. He's just trying to do comedy that matters, comedy that engages with the real world. And then, the worst part? Jimmy accused Stephen of being exhausting and pathetic. Those are fighting words. You can criticize someone's work, you can disagree with their approach, but when you start attacking them personally, you've crossed a line. And that's exactly what Jimmy did. He crossed the line multiple times, and Stephen had every right to walk off that set. Let's also talk about the audience reaction, because that tells you everything you need to know. At first, people were laughing nervously, thinking this was some kind of bit, some planned comedic segment. But as it went on, the laughter stopped. People realized this was real. This was an actual fight happening right in front of them. And by the end, when Stephen walked off, the audience was dead silent. Nobody knew what to do. They weren't entertained. They were uncomfortable. Because watching someone get attacked like that isn't fun. It's painful. And Jimmy, to his credit, tried to play it off like it was no big deal. But you could see right through it. He was shaken. He didn't expect Stephen to actually leave. He thought Stephen would just take it, laugh it off, move on. But Stephen didn't. He stood up for himself. And in doing so, he showed everyone watching exactly who the real professional is. Now, some people might say Stephen overreacted. They might say he should have just rolled with the punches, that it's all part of being in the entertainment industry. But here's the thing. There's a difference between good-natured teasing and outright disrespect. What Jimmy did was disrespectful. He didn't just poke fun at Stephen, he tried to humiliate him. He tried to make him look bad in front of millions of viewers. And when someone does that to you, you have two choices. You can sit there and take it, or you can stand up and walk away. Stephen chose to walk away, and honestly, good for him. This whole situation also raises bigger questions about the culture of late-night television. These hosts are supposed to be colleagues, part of the same community. But increasingly, we're seeing this competitive nastiness, this need to one-up each other and prove who's the best. And that's not healthy. That's not what entertainment should be about. It should be about making people laugh, bringing people together, not tearing each other down. Jimmy Kimmel has built his career on being edgy, on pushing boundaries, and sometimes that works. But this time, he pushed too far. He let his ego get in the way of being a good host, and he paid the price. Stephen Colbert walked off his show, and that's going to be remembered. That's going to be a stain on Jimmy's reputation for a long time. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert comes out of this looking like the bigger person. He didn't sit there and engage in a shouting match. He didn't stoop to Jimmy's level. He simply said, "I'm not doing this," and left. That takes guts. That takes self-respect. And that's why, at the end of the day, Stephen is the good guy in this story. He knows his worth. He knows what he stands for. And he's not going to let anyone, not even a fellow late-night host, make him feel small. Let's also consider the words that were exchanged, because language matters. Jimmy used words like predictable, boring, exhausting, and pathetic. Those aren't just critiques. Those are attacks designed to hurt. Stephen, on the other hand, defended himself without resorting to personal insults at first. He talked about doing meaningful work, about trusting his audience, about holding powerful people accountable. Those are principles. Those are values. And when Jimmy kept pushing, kept attacking, Stephen finally pushed back. But even then, he didn't attack Jimmy as a person. He attacked Jimmy's approach, his insecurity, his empty television. There's a difference. And let's talk about that moment when Stephen ripped off his microphone. That's a powerful image. In television, the microphone is everything. It's your voice, your connection to the audience. When you rip it off and throw it down, you're saying, "I don't need this. I don't need you." That's a statement. That's taking control of the situation and refusing to be a victim. Stephen wasn't going to sit there and be Jimmy's punching bag. He was going to leave on his own terms. The crew's reaction is also worth noting. You could see them scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. They weren't prepared for this. They had no plan for what happens when a guest just walks off. And that's because this almost never happens. Guests don't walk off talk shows. They smile, they play along, they promote their project, and they leave. But Stephen didn't care about playing the game. He cared about his dignity, and he chose dignity over decorum. Now, what does this mean for Jimmy Kimmel moving forward? Well, it's not going to be easy for him to bounce back from this. People are going to remember this interview. They're going to remember how he treated Stephen. And some people are going to question whether they want to watch a host who's willing to attack his guests like that. Sure, Jimmy has his loyal fans, but he might have lost some respect in the industry. Other celebrities might think twice before coming on his show. Nobody wants to be the next target. On the flip side, this probably made people respect Stephen even more. He showed that he won't tolerate being disrespected, even in a public forum. He showed that he values his principles over publicity. And that's rare in Hollywood. Most people would have just swallowed their pride and finished the interview. But not Stephen. He drew a line and walked away. That's integrity. Let's go back to that moment when things really heated up. Jimmy said, "You're just another guy trying to get ratings." That comment reveals so much about Jimmy's mindset. To him, it's all about ratings. It's all about winning, about being number one. But for Stephen, it's about something more. It's about making content that matters, that says something, that contributes to the conversation. And when Jimmy reduced everything to ratings, he showed his hand. He showed that he doesn't really understand what Stephen is trying to do. Stephen's response was perfect. He said, "You're just bitter because your show doesn't stand for anything." And that's the truth. Jimmy's show is fine. It's entertaining. But what does it stand for? What's the point of it beyond getting laughs? Stephen's show, love it or hate it, has a point of view. It takes stands. It engages with current events. It means something. And that's what Jimmy can't stand. He can't stand that Stephen's work has depth while his own feels shallow in comparison. Another key moment was when Jimmy said, At least I don't use my platform to talk down to half the country. This is a common criticism of Stephen, that he's too political, that he alienates conservative viewers. But here's the thing, Stephen isn't trying to appeal to everyone. He's trying to speak truth as he sees it. And yes, that means some people won't like it, but that's okay. Not every show needs to be for everyone. Stephen has found his audience, people who appreciate what he does, and he's not going to change that just to make Jimmy Kimmel happy. Jimmy's insecurity really showed through in this interview. You could see it in his body language, in his tone, in the things he said. He was trying to make Stephen feel small because he himself feels threatened. And when Stephen didn't back down, when he fought back, Jimmy got even more aggressive. That's classic bully behavior. Attack, attack, attack. And when the victim fights back, act like they're the problem. But Stephen wasn't having it. He saw through Jimmy's act. He recognized what was happening and refused to participate. And that's what makes him the hero of this story. He didn't play Jimmy's game. He stood up, spoke his truth, and walked away. That's power. That's confidence. Think about the courage it takes to walk off a live television show. The cameras are rolling, millions of people are watching, your reputation is on the line. Most people would be paralyzed by fear in that situation, but Stephen wasn't afraid. He knew he was in the right, and he acted accordingly. He didn't worry about how it would look or what people would say. He just did what he felt was necessary, and that's admirable. Now, let's imagine what was going through Stephen's head in those final moments before he walked off. He's sitting there, listening to Jimmy insult him over and over again. He's thinking about all the years he's put into his career, all the hard work, all the sacrifices. And here's this guy, this supposed colleague, trying to tear it all down for what? For a few laughs? For ratings? It's insulting. It's infuriating. And at a certain point, you just have to say, enough is enough. And that's exactly what Stephen did. He said enough is enough. He reclaimed his power. He showed everyone watching that he won't tolerate disrespect, no matter who it's coming from or where it's happening. That's a lesson we can all learn from. You don't have to sit there and take abuse just because someone else is in a position of power. You can stand up. You can walk away. You can choose yourself. The aftermath of this moment was probably chaos behind the scenes. The producers are freaking out, trying to figure out how to salvage the show. Jimmy's trying to compose himself, to act like everything's fine. But it's not fine. The whole episode is ruined. And it's all because Jimmy couldn't control his ego. He had to push. He had to attack. And it backfired spectacularly. This interview will be studied for years as an example of how not to treat a guest. It's a masterclass in what happens when a host lets their personal feelings get in the way of professionalism. Jimmy Kimmel failed as a host in this moment. He didn't make his guests feel welcome. He didn't facilitate an interesting conversation. He didn't entertain his audience. He just attacked someone and drove them away. That's the opposite of good hosting. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert showed what it means to have self-respect. He showed that you don't have to endure abuse just to be polite. He showed that walking away is sometimes the strongest thing you can do. And he showed that staying true to your values matters more than playing nice with people who don't respect you. This whole situation is a reminder that Hollywood isn't always glamorous. Behind the smiles and the laughter, there are real tensions, real conflicts, real egos. And sometimes those things boil over on live television for everyone to see. This was one of those times. This was a moment of truth, where the mask came off and we saw who these people really are. Jimmy Kimmel is someone who needs to be the center of attention, who can't handle sharing the spotlight, who will attack others to make himself feel superior. That's what we learned about him. And Stephen Colbert is someone who values integrity, who won't compromise his principles, who has the courage to walk away when he's being disrespected. That's what we learned about him. So who's the villain in this story? It's pretty clear. Jimmy Kimmel is the antagonist. He started the conflict, he escalated it, he made it personal. He drove his guest off the set, all because he couldn't handle having someone on his show who might be more respected than he is. That's not just bad hosting, that's bad character. And who's the hero? Stephen Colbert, without question. He handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. He defended himself without being cruel. He stood up for his values. And he walked away with his dignity intact. That's heroic. This interview is going to be talked about for a long time. People are going to analyze it, debate it, share it. And every time they do, they're going to reach the same conclusion. Jimmy Kimmel was out of line, and Stephen Colbert was right to leave. That's the story. That's what happened. So what can we take away from all of this? First, treat people with respect, especially when they're your guest. Second, don't let your ego get in the way of doing your job. Third, know when to walk away from a toxic situation. And fourth, always stay true to yourself, no matter what. Stephen Colbert walked off Jimmy Kimmel's show, and in doing so, he taught us all a valuable lesson. You don't have to tolerate disrespect. You don't have to smile and play along when someone is attacking you. You can stand up, speak your truth, and walk away. And sometimes, that's the most powerful thing you can do. This was one of the most dramatic moments in late-night television history. Two giants of the industry, face to face, and it all fell apart in spectacular fashion. Jimmy Kimmel's entitled attitude and outrageous comments pushed Stephen Colbert too far, and the result was an explosive confrontation that nobody will ever forget. Make sure you're subscribed because we're always bringing you the real stories behind the Hollywood facade. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this shocking behavior. Was Stephen right to walk off? Should Jimmy apologize? We want to hear from you.